Just a quick note before we begin. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. We are not licensed professionals, just parents who've experienced unimaginable loss. This isn't meant to replace help from a therapist, doctor, or other mental health professional. If you're struggling, please reach out to someone qualified. You are not alone. Welcome to Don't Forget to Breathe. I'm Bruce Barker, and I'm joined by my co-host, Kristin Glenn. When a child dies, we don't just grieve who they were. We grieve who they were becoming. The birthdays that never come, the life we imagined watching unfold. In this episode, we're talking about the shattered future, the grief no one prepares you for, and the loss that keeps showing up in new ways. If you've ever felt this kind of grief and didn't know how to name it, you're not alone. So take a breath. This conversation is for you. Hey, Kristin, how are you?
I'm okay. Kind of a bluer week for me, but I'm just glad to have this time to just talk through some stuff. So,
well, this is the place for it.
Absolutely.
Right? That's what we've opened up for everyone.
Yep.
And what we're talking about in this episode is that shattered future and just kind of naming that invisible loss. So I know in groups that I've done, conversations and sharing that parents have expressed, it's all different stories. And we've talked about that, we're not comparing, and the ages that their child died. And I've talked to people who were grieving their 60-year-old son who died, all the way to miscarriage and then a few days old. And there's not a lot necessarily that I think those two could relate to, as far as I had all these years with this person, and you're talking about the things that you miss and the experiences that you had, and then to someone who had maybe a day or two, or not even that. But the common ground that we all have is the future that's shattered, the future that we grieve. Does that make sense?
I think it absolutely makes sense. And I think the common ground is that we all wanted more.
Yeah.
Regardless, more time. When I think about your grief around Kristin, when did you realize that you were not just grieving your own loss for Kristin's physical presence here, but their future, grieving kind of on her behalf and what she would have been next on this planet?
That's a good question. I for me, because as I've shared before, I didn't do a lot of work, so to speak, or really getting into the grieving process the first few years. So everything was just backward looking. I'm looking back at experiences, and then some of those where have gone someplace that she and I went together, and grieving like all of that, looking back. And it wasn't until I think I might have seen, because I stayed off social media too, and it wasn't until I saw someone post something about their son who was Kristin's age. I think it was a moment when they announced, he was married and announced they were having a baby. And I went, wait a second, I'm not going to get that.
Yeah.
That was the first. I mean, there have been plenty. That was the first moment where then I'm grieving the future that was lost, on top of grieving the past. Like to me, it was a double whammy.
I bet that
Didn't
really
feel
blindsided you. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I didn't just lose Kristin. I lost the version of myself who I was supposed to be watching her grow. So I lost that part of me too. We talk about loss in so many different contexts and in different ways. And I lost the seeing her future, but I lost seeing mine with her and watching her.
Yeah, hadn't thought about putting it that way, but thinking about losing what your identity would have been at this point in Kristin's life in relation to all the experiences and milestones she would be experiencing at this point, and how she would interact with you differently than she did as a younger girl.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it certainly affected my identity as a parent. It took away the possible identity as a grandparent, since she was my only child. So yeah, it changed a lot of that for me. If it's okay to ask you, how did your vision of what would be Zach's adulthood, how did you imagine that?
There's moments when I allow myself to imagine it, and they're both heartbreaking and beautiful. I remember sharing a moment with a bereaved mom one time when we realized that our children were born the same year, and her daughter died in her teens, and Zach, of course, died kind of a toddler. But we realized, if these tragedies had not happened, they would have progressed and been, I think at that time, in their mid-20s. And we just sat together and thought maybe they would have known each other. Would have they been friends? Well, what was your daughter like? Well, what was Zach like? And I think for both of us, we just allowed ourselves this moment of fantasy of what if we would be meeting as moms of children living and watching them maybe interact and have a friendship. Or I met with a mom one time, and her baby died at birth. She was born still, and a really insensitive person at the lab should have read her chart better and said to her, "Are you here for, your own blood work or the little's blood work?" And she didn't have a baby with her, and then she said, "Oh, the little is at home with daddy. She'll come in later." And she goes, "Kristin, am I wrong to say that? Is that like a sign that I'm not dealing with reality?" And I said, "No, it's a sign that you just needed to take a break. You needed 1 minute of not having to say to the lab person what really happened." And it was, her insensitivity and her rushing that she didn't read your medical chart, and that you took that moment and just decided, "I just want to imagine that my little is here and just didn't come for their labs today, but they will." And she said it felt so good just for that one moment, and that I didn't choose to say what really happened, because when you choose to say what really happened, you're really exposed. You're really putting into someone else's hands to see what they're going to say next, or most likely, I have found, say nothing. So uncomfortable that they just choose to say nothing. So I do allow myself to think every once in a while, what would it be like to have him here as the older brother, my firstborn that taught me how to be a mom, and what would he like right now? I think there's a country song, "Who would you be now?" And I think it's so sad to imagine, and also so beautiful to take what we know of our children and kind of project it into the future, because we know them better than anyone. So if anyone's going to fantasize about what was next for them, we have that right, I think.
I mean, I know that like in those moments when, like, say you were talking to a friend and you imagine what that would have been like, and I've done the same. Would you say it's reopening grief, or grief didn't really close? I mean, it's like it's there, but then as you said, it's beautiful too. And I think, doesn't that really get back to what we've talked about before, where grief and joy can live in the same moment? Isn't that really kind of the description?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. And I kind of take it as my mom right to be able to think
Yeah.
what, I know him. I still know him. And
Mm-hmm.
if I want to think about what he would be like at this moment, that's okay. And yeah, it hurts because it's not real and it's not attainable, but it hurts, period. I've been
Yeah.
reflecting a lot on I can't remember if he got to do specific things in his life. And I want to, he died before the era of cell phones. So I have to go through old school photo albums. But I was
Yeah.
thinking the other day, did he get to do that? Did he ever see the ocean? Did he have a time to dress up as Batman as Halloween, or did I just want him to be able to do that? It's been long enough that I'm really feeling this pull to make that reality for my mind of what did he get to do and what was missing for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's been heavy on my mind more than it has been for years, and it's hard to have the reality that I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember after that long,
No, I've done the same with printed photos. Going through, I just had hundreds, and then I got nervous and had them all digitized so that I've got an electronic version of everything, so that I can go through and revisit those moments. And you mentioned something about, did he get to see the ocean? And there's a picture that I have of Kristin, and she's probably 4, and just kind of playing in the water and getting hit with a little wave. And I love the photo. I love that moment. And I've thought about, knowing her, that the time that I spent with her when she was, with me in the summers and different holidays, because I don't know if listeners have followed since the beginning, but her mother and I were divorced. I lived in a different state, and so she would always come and stay with me and visit me. But I wondered, not really thinking it wouldn't be, I just she was going to be that mom that would do the same thing. And I could see that photo and think of her with her child at the ocean going, I did this. And then doing the same stuff. So it was those same moments of, yeah, there's that little bit of sadness, but then smiled at the same time, and then go right back to feeling like, oh, she missed out and I missed out, and it bounces.
Yeah, and her future babies missed out. She
Yeah.
would have been an incredible mama, right? We can take
Yeah.
that to all those levels of all the people that missed out on having that later life version of our children part of their world, because they were destined to do good things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a visual person and have done art for decades, and it tied in when I, thinking of that image and seeing that, with the title of this episode, with this shattered future, and literally seeing that photo, but of a grandchild, her child, and literally seeing it shatter, like glass, like it's not there, it's not real, it's only in my imagination. And I know that it hurts. I know it hurts every parent that thinks about the what if, the what could have been. We look back and go, well, if I'd done this or if I'd done that, depending on whatever situation it is and whatever loss it was. And I had mine, but it's that forward looking of going, well, what if this or what if that? And sometimes, depending on where you are in your journey, it's an okay place to be. Just like when I saw you, because I can see you, so listeners know that we're doing this remotely, and we can see each other on screen. And as you're describing that moment, and I see the smile that it brings to you of that,
Yeah,
again, the joy and the sadness all together.
absolutely.
So what about milestones that I've missed, you've missed, we've maybe have already missed, and then those that would be like age markers? So I experienced Kristin at 18, but not at 21 and not at 30. And just this last October, someone pointed out to me she would have been 40. And now my first thought was, oh my God, that makes me old.
How
But
could
again,
she
so
be
that was
40?
just me
I'm
being selfish.
40.
But 40,
Yeah.
do you find those, do you think about them? Or do you get blindsided with them? Like,
Some I really prepare for and think about. I'm preparing for an upcoming birthday for Zach. I'm very intentional about it. And then some things, they just get me. I was teaching high school during the year he should have graduated. And that one got me. And I was chosen to walk with the senior class as one of their teacher sponsors, and just to walk alongside those 18-year-olds.
oh my gosh.
That one really got me. My middle son got married this last year, and I had the strangest moment. One of his groomsmen was in the military and at the last minute couldn't come. And I was thinking about that as I went to sleep, and that, now the sides might be uneven, and that's too bad. And I know my son is unhappy about that. And then, that twilight time when you're not really awake, but you're not sleeping.
Yes.
And I thought, oh my gosh, well, he'll just have Zach step in. Like, his one brother's in the wedding. Why haven't we asked? I mean, it was just like this moment, and just waking up, just weeping of, I really, in my dreams, was thinking, why hasn't he thought of that? He should just go ask him. That he'll step right in. And again, projecting who he'd be. That, of course, he's laid back, he's easygoing. He can just step right up and be your extra groomsman, And boy, that wedding time of the void, what's missing, and really, really feeling like I did not have, it wasn't my space to express my grief. It was a very celebratory time of children that never knew their brother, and know that this has impacted my husband and I, but they don't miss his physical presence. I think they miss his place in the family somehow, right? Because they'll say things like, well, I'm not really the firstborn or the oldest, but I think it's a confusing thing, because I had such an earlier in life loss than you did. We did, I guess, have the opportunity and had other children, but I also think it's impacted them in ways that I can never apologize enough for. That I have been a very different mom than I think I would have been. Some good, awareness of the frailty of life and wanting to embrace the moments, but some, I'm sure, really a burden to them. All the fears and all the worries, which all moms have.
Yeah.
But when you've been in this lived reality, and then also I really submersed myself in it for 2 decades. And my kids had to live with that. So long story short, going back to the milestone of the wedding, it certainly wasn't a place to say, man, he should be here. It was, I had to really keep that inside, keep that under lock and key. And that was important, I think, to do, but it was tough.
But like with other friends that go through those weddings or those milestones, because I can say for sure, yes, for me, were there any moments of resentment or jealousy, like you get to do this and I don't?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Just jealousy, resentment, anger. And boy, my anger really flared when I would see someone not appreciate their parenting journey.
Oh, yeah.
Whew.
Oh, yeah.
Or be unsafe.
Definitely.
Purposefully. We all have tragic accidents, and I succumbed to, Zach was a home accident that's the cause of his death. So I'm never one to say, let's judge parents. My God, it's so hard to be a parent. But the parents that are careless and cruel and don't appreciate, I still have a really hard time.
I do. Yeah.
With that, like, how can you? Yeah. That brings up a lot.
Yeah. That's another topic.
Yeah. Let's put that on our docket.
Yeah. I had, and it was really when, social media is really kind of kicking off, and it was like, I was there all the time because everyone's posting everything about their kid. And when they're, and these are classmates, and yeah, I would try not to get too far down that road of being angry, but I would be resentful. I was not doing the little likes and all. I'm like, okay, all right, I see it. But and of course I wasn't blaming them for posting anything like that. I would have done the same thing, but there were moments, a lot of them, practically every post, where I'm jealous that I don't get to do the same thing. And
absolutely,
that she doesn't get to experience what they're posting that their kids are doing. Yeah. So it was a mix. I mean, there were times, there would be a moment where I would see and go, that's really cool. And then almost in the same moment, I could feel a little mix of joy and a little mix of devastation all at the same time. It took a long time. It was a long, long road to where that softens for me, but there are definitely still moments.
How could
it's mostly kids, grandkids?
Absolutely, it's everywhere.
We'll pause our conversation there. As we talk about this shattered future, it becomes clear that this is a part of grief that many parents carry quietly. It's not just the memories behind us that hurt, it's the moments ahead that never arrived, the birthdays that would have come, the milestones that never happened, the versions of our children and ourselves that we never got to meet. In this first part of our conversation, Kristin and I began naming that invisible loss, the future that disappeared when our children died. But there's more to this conversation. In the next episode, we'll talk about the milestones that can unexpectedly reopen that grief, the birthdays, graduations, weddings, and life moments that remind us of who should be standing beside us. And we'll talk honestly about something many parents feel but rarely say out loud: the jealousy, resentment, and complicated emotions that can surface when we watch other families experience what we lost. So join us for part 2 of this conversation. Until then, wherever you are on your journey, remember to be gentle to yourself, and don't forget to breathe. One more thing, if you found meaning or comfort in these conversations, consider becoming a supporter of the Don't Forget to Breathe podcast. Your support helps keep these stories alive and makes it possible for others to find hope in their own grief journey. For as little as $3 a month, your support goes to offset costs associated with production. You can learn more on the information page for this episode. You can also contact us by going to the show notes and click on Send Us a Text. Or my contact email is bruce.barker61@yahoo.com. That's BRUCE.BARKER61@yahoo.com. Until next time.